Well, Gauteng Education has outlined its plans for this financial year. MEC Matome Chiloane tabled his maiden budget vote on Friday.
Let's find out what those plans are from the Gauteng Education spokesperson, Steve Mabona. Steve, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, there's a lot of lip service that has been offered to Gautengers, South Africans, about what it is that education, at least at the basic level, intends to do to ensure that everything is taken care of. What can we expect different in this particular year?
Good morning, Morena and Faith, and to our viewers. Now, when coming to basic education in Gauteng, there's nothing like lip service. We are at service. As you might have seen, we have reprioritized most of the activities. We did what we call, reprioritization of our priorities. On top is the early childhood development. As you know, that's a critical stage of learning. We need to improve early childhood development. Make sure that our children, at an early age, they are in a position to, read for meaning, like as you've already seen the study. So once we are sure that in our ECD level, we are teaching, not that the children will be singing and sleeping. So we have improved that. We remember we took over from social development. So it's one of our priorities. Our school of specialization, we're improving the quality of education in Gauteng, make sure that learners in the basic education already, when they leave our schooling environment, they can go in the corporate world because they would have amassed skills that are necessary. We have what we call multi-certification, making sure that all levels, one or the other, there's a certificate that you amass in all the grades, so that by the time you reach grade 12, you would have been enriched with about 12, certificates. So we've also looking at our infrastructure, make sure that we build more schools, increase capacity, make sure that we can accommodate our ICT rollout, the smart schools that we have prioritized in all our townships. You know that there's smart boards, there's laptop for educators, there's tablets for learners. So that will continue to improve and make sure that actually all our schools in Gauteng, they should be smart, one or the other. So that's what we are doing. And we have apportioned budget, necessary allocations to all those responsibilities.
Steve, let's talk a little bit about children with disabilities, because in often cases they become almost the back thought. Especially when it comes to different pockets of society. You've got kids that are like 6 years old or 10 years old or 16 years old that are either blind or they're just living with some kind of a disability. And often times when you have conversations with them, it's about the capacity as well as the resources that are allocated to schools dealing specifically with disabilities. And a lot of time, a lot of them struggle. They take longer within those specific schools. Simply either A, they do not find the right school for them. There is no education value enough for them. And most of the time they become they turn 19, 20, 21 within the very same basic education school system. So what are we doing to address that, particularly with persons with disabilities?
No, in Gauteng we have improved that. You'll remember when the Premier started as an MEC, he reprioritized that. He said these learners will not be treated as third-class citizens. And hence the budget there has been reprioritized since then. So each and every time what we do, we go back there and review and check on how many of those schools that we have. Remember, we had to go back and make sure that we refurbish those that were not up to standard. And we had to, introduce the new school, the biggest one in the country, where we spent a lot of money on that school. And there are plans now for us to open the second one, which will be the biggest as well. So we have reprioritized that element. The waiting period, at some point it was 1.5 years, or most even 2 years for one waiting for school. But for now, we've reduced that to probably about 3 months if you were to wait for longer for you to be allocated in that space. But you'll understand that there's necessary assessments, there's examinations that you go through the medical, the assessments and all those before you can be allocated a school and be, regarded as a child that will need such a school. So we're working very closely with our stakeholders, making sure that year in, year out, we improve that space, and we will continue to do so.
Steve, just on the matter of pupil placement and registration and such, there's still in 2023 some grievances, some complaints, some issues that parents have with the online registration. I want to look at the online registration in this particular point, and it is something that the former MEC of Gauteng Education, Panyaza Lesufi, of course, who's now the Premier, was very passionate about, something that he himself was spearheading. Does the current MEC, Matome Chiloane, feel that this particular system is something that the department can be proud of? Is it something that you yourself can be proud of, even in the midst of parents still in this year, after many years of it being running, are still complaining?
You will remember that the current MEC was in the legislature. He was doing oversight, and he was the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Education. So you would have been privy of the business of education. And on arrival, then we had to take him through the process, make sure that he understands all the elements of the system. And taking him through the entire system now, making him understand on how it works. He then understood that really you will not be in a position to change this. Actually, he's been amplifying the message that we cannot go back where parents will go and wake up in the morning, 12 o'clock, they are waiting somewhere in a queue with a camp chair somewhere. And when the gates open, your application, there's no one who can account for it. When you want to complain, no one recognizes that you, and even there in the queue, in some schools where they want to prioritize you with color, you are not even considered. Some instances, they will tell you that they need records of medical for your children, or they will ask you for bank accounts or salary slips. All those things that were an impediment in the process of admissions. You can't entertain them now, because when you apply now, we can account for your application. You can apply to more than 3 schools that you want. You can apply anywhere. As long as there's a space in that school, you will be accommodated, because categories are very clear that if you are closer to a school, you must be in a position to access that school. If there's a sibling, you must be accommodated. And if you want to apply using your work address because you think that it will be easy for you to come with your child and drop and go to work, you are also allowed. In the previous or olden days, you couldn't be doing such, because they were telling you about 5-kilometer radius. If you are beyond, you can't even begin to apply. So the system came handy. It's assisting, and it took away a burden from the schools, from our employees, from the parents, because the administration of the online is quite fluid. The only challenge that we have, which we have considered, is capacity. We cannot accommodate everyone who apply in all our schools.
Steve, we'll leave it there for this morning. Much appreciated for your time. Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona on the department's budget vote. And of course, you get to find out more information even on their Twitter handle, just to find out exactly how they're reprioritizing their budget, because ultimately it's about your child. Your child is affected in all of this.